start the recording. What I want to do is kind of give an overview real quick of what this is all about, and we can talk about some use cases for it and things like that. Um, so we are going to talk about grading groups, setting up a grading group, and using the grading groups to assign things based on grading groups and things like that. And there are, again, lots of different use cases for grading groups. Including if you have a group of students that needs special accommodations, or if you have lab groups or reading groups or anything like that. And Schoology allows you to kind of section and kind of partition your class so that you can assign different kids to different groups and kind of use it from there. And like I said, there are lots of different use cases. I'll share a couple that I've come across recently. But it's actually pretty simple. So let me share my screen and kind of walk you through the process of creating these groups. So you'll want to go into your class, of course, and go over to, click on members. And you'll notice that I already have a few groups here that are set out. I was just kind of playing around with things. I only have a few students in my class, so this is kind of our test course to play around with. But you can create a group over here in members once again, and notice I'm in a class that has multiple sections all linked. Okay, so when I click on that little kind of dashed box, I can create a group of students in this section only. Okay, so I could, I could create a group that's called accommodation or accommodate. Okay, and then right here in this screen, I can add students that need certain accommodations. So let's say it's accommodate, and it's the accommodation where they need their tests read to them. Okay, so I'll pick a couple students to put in that group and create the grading group. And now you'll see that the grading group shows up over here along with a button that I can use if I forgot to add a student to this group and stuff like that. I can edit the group or I can change the name. But I also want to point out that when you put students in a group, it shows up underneath their profile. So over here, you notice Chris Kenneberg is in that accommodate group, as well as he's in the sixth grade group and in the consent group. Okay, so whatever those are, whatever I've set up, then they'll show up in those groups. So they'll have it listed underneath. Okay, now you can create multiple groups. Obviously, each individual can be in multiple groups, and some students can not be in a group if you don't need them to be in a group. And this is important when you go back to your course and you want to give us an assignment. So let's say the sample assessment that I've created, I only want to assign to those that have that special accommodation to have their test read. So I can come down here, and the button I want to focus on is this little guy right down here, the 3 circles that are arranged in a triangle. So if I click that, I can, if you notice, when I put my cursor in there, it says begin typing the name of a course member or grading group. I can now start typing accommodate, and notice I have a couple groups that have that same name, and I can choose accommodate test read. Okay, so now only the students that are in that group will be able to see that assignment. And so you can use this to kind of give different versions of tests, different versions of assignments, different topics to discuss and things like that. If you wanted to, for instance, create a discussion forum or something like that, you could set that for a particular lab group, for instance. Okay, so if I wanted to go back to my members once again and just call this lab group 1, okay, and I'll put Sean Williams test and student test in that group. All right, and so now I can assign a discussion, for instance, that only students that are in lab group 1 can discuss. And so obviously I'd want to have another, maybe lab group 2, all right, that has the other students in the class. and I can create a discussion forum for those students. And so I'd have to create two different ones, one for lab group 1 and one for lab group 2. But at least that way I can get the right kids talking with the right peers within a discussion forum, for instance. So that's a couple use cases for using grading groups, okay? Another one we came across yesterday, I was working with a teacher that required consent from a parent in order for the students to be able to participate in the activities. And they're actually doing activities at home that that could not work out very well for their homes if things went wrong. It's a cooking class, so we don't want anybody burning down the house. We want parents to know that that their child is using the stove and things like that. So they had to have their parents sign the form. So what this teacher wanted to do is create a group that had all of the students that had filled out and had the consent form signed, so that when she gave her assignments, only the students who had their consent forms filled out could even see what the recipe was and see what the instructions were and things like that. So that's a couple use cases for grading groups. All right. And I want to introduce, Sue knows Amber, but for those of you, if you're watching the video, along with me today is our other honorary tech coach, Amber Wade, and she has maybe some other use cases that she's seen and would like to share. Go ahead, Amber.
Yeah, I know a lot of in the classroom, a lot of teachers do may have clock groups, say like 12 o'clock group, 3 o'clock group, 6 and 9. So this way, there's different activities they're mixing with different kids. So by kind of programming these ahead of time, now you're able to just kind of dump today's project, we're going to do the 3 o'clock groups, which might be just a heterogeneous mix of kids. But then your 12 o'clock group of kids could be, grouped by reading levels. So you're using your NWEA data, your WIDA level data, whatever the case may be. And by having those kind of pre-done, it makes that differentiation and it helps replicate that brick and mortar experience in a digital sense. I know a lot of the special ed teachers, they're using them in their own courses to assign IEP goal work specifically to a certain group of students or to a certain students, because IEPs are all individualized. Each student has their own goals, which may be different. It might not be grade level work because they're behind in grade level. So one kid might be working on punctuation, one student might be working on fluency. So by having that individual stuff, other kids can't see what everyone else is kind of working on. And it helps clean up that experience by having only seeing things that you want them to see. It eliminates that clutter, which helps focus their energy and exactly at what we want them to learn and do. So there's a lot of different uses for it. I really like the kitchen one for the consent. That makes a lot of sense. It is good to keep in mind though, that if you're assigning something to one group of students, you're probably going to want something balanced out for the other people. So your grade book stays a little bit cleaner. I know we're not necessarily utilizing the Schoology grade book as our main thing, but students are going to look at it. So that's kind of something else to kind of keep in mind, is to kind of eliminate the clutter.
Great point. There was something I wanted to clarify there. It does eliminate some of the clutter for students, but as a teacher, obviously, you're going to see everything. So even though you might assign, something to lab group 1 and something different to lab group 2, or something different to NWEA group 2, or a special accommodations group or something like that, you as the teacher are going to see all of those things on your course page. So it really does clean it up, but it's cleaning it up for the student. So keep that in mind as well. If you don't see something, it's because it's not there.
And you can assign within a folder too. So you can create your folder that's project to whatever, and then in there have subfolders and assign it, which could help the scroll of death, so to speak.
For sure. So yeah, I mean, if I go back to my if I go back to my folders here, I could make folder number 2, for instance, assigned only to one of those groups. Okay, so I could search for, well, I see a drop down list here. So if I wanted to, I could only assign this folder to lab group 1, and then only lab group 1 sees that folder. So I could create a lab group 2 folder and have them have their folder as well. And so that'll keep things clean for me. So great point. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Amber, for joining us, and Sue, thanks for being here. I'm going to stop the recording now, and if you do have any questions, feel free to email me or Amy at harrisr@dearbornschools.org, and Amy is GwizA at dearbornschools.org, or you can find our contact information and things like that on the Tech Coaches blog, which is techcoaches.dearbornschools.org if you have questions. So I'm going to stop the recording and see if there are any questions.